Yeah, you're happy, Philip?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I'm very happy to make a start. Yes, sort of.
Yeah. Have we got Andy Devaney with us or with you?
We have.
We do. Hi, Neville.
Okay, right. Good morning. Morning, everybody. Right,
Morning.
let's make a start. Let's make a start. Welcome to this video conference. This morning, the subject is government support for businesses. And I'm delighted to say we've got Philip Cox, Chief Executive of the Cheshire and Warrington Local Enterprise Partnership, and his colleague, I can't see him, but he's there somewhere, I'm told, Andy Devaney, who's head of the LEP's Growth Hub. Philip, do you want to start this? And then I think you're going to hand over to Andy.
I am, and then hopefully we'll leave some time for Q&A as well. I mean, just kind of very quickly, and I'll sort of broaden it ever so slightly out from just government support, but just to sort of give everyone a sense of how we as a LEP and indeed the sort of the local authorities and our partners have been responded to this crisis. The very first and most immediate thing that we did, absolute credit to central government. At the same time as they announced the lockdown, the Chancellor, only 1 week after his budget, came back to the House of Commons and announced an absolutely huge programme of support for businesses, and we then very rapidly reconfigured the Growth Hub to both be an organisation that was pushing information out to businesses via our existing databases, but also, I don't know whether this was official or unofficial, but there was a relaxation in GDPR requirements. So we were able to get emails out to people that perhaps in more normal times we wouldn't have been able to contact. We also set the Growth Hub up as it was already operating as a sort of a call centre, if you like, but the volume of calls increased very substantially, and I think it's probably fair to say that the sort of the type of calls that we were getting transitioned. Initially it was businesses, and we did have people quite literally crying on the phone to us about kind of the problems that they were encountering, and we were able to explain to them the furloughing support that come on stream and various other bits and pieces. More latterly, as people have become aware of the support that is available, more latterly we've become much more of a sort of an advice sell, when people have been ringing up saying, well, actually, I thought you told me I could get a loan from my bank, but I've just been turned down, or I've just had a threatening letter from my landlord, and I'm sure the government had said that I didn't have to pay my rent this month. So we've been able. So we have set people up in the Growth Hub as experts on the various different different schemes. So that's been the sort of, if you like, the sort of the core of our offering, and we've and the local authorities have been very much relying on us to sort of provide that role. Some of the other things that we have been doing have been much more about short-term responses to the crisis. So one of the particularly around the Growth Hub, but also using the people from our pledge programme. That's our careers sort of team that in normal times is about connecting young people up with businesses in the area and helping them get work experience, and hopefully encouraging them to sort of take up jobs with businesses in Cheshire and Warrington. We've redirected them to some extent. The local authorities have got grants that they can pay out to businesses who've got kind of business rate bills. I think it's below 50,000. And is it below 50,000? Is it a rateable value below £50,000?
It is, yes.
Yeah. So if you've got a rateable value below £50,000, you are due an automatic grant of £10,000, and if you're in the hospitality industry, an automatic grant of £25,000. Rather surprisingly, local authorities are actually finding it quite hard to get in touch with some of these firms. So we've picked up, in particular from Cheshire East, who are struggling the most because of the sort of the structure of their economy. We've picked up 1,000 companies that we are currently trying to contact to say, if you just give us your bank account number, then we'll put £10,000 into your bank account. Which I have to say, if I got that phone call, I'd probably put it down as a scam and sort of refuse to accept it. But it is genuine. And then in other parts, we are whenever an incident like this happens, there is a local resilience framework that kicks into action, and most of what the local resilience framework is doing is making sure that everybody's got the right PPE, or I'm afraid that there's sufficient mortuary capacity sort of around the area, and that some vulnerable people are getting who perhaps can't get out, particularly the shielded individuals who've been told do not come out of your house for 12 weeks. Making sure that they can get food and lots and lots of practical things. But within that, and I'm afraid the resilience world works using sort of quite military terms. So the local resilience framework has been stood up, as it is described, and then there are individual working groups sort of in my world, but they're called cells in the resilience world. So I am chairing an economic resilience cell. And the focus of that is to try and get an understanding of, who the newly unemployed people are going to be. So claims for universal credit increased 20-fold, virtually overnight. So there's a load of people who are on universal credit who've never been on universal credit in their lives before. Trying to get a better handle and understanding of who the businesses are that are most struggling. We want to understand the people who are being furloughed, and then there's also some other interesting stuff around the number of children who haven't got access to IT and therefore can't access the curriculum by working at home. That turns out to be about 10% of the of kids at school. We are currently surveying all of our schools. Deadline for returns is tomorrow. We've had the first 15 returns. We've already identified 700 children who either don't have access to a kit or to the internet. So we're wanting to sort of pay attention to how we can help them get that kit, and you may well see something from us coming out sort of fairly shortly saying can you help with computer equipment and the like, so we can try and start to get some of that to some of those pupils. And then the final thing that we are doing, and we're right at the kind of the starting stages of this, is how do we help the economy recover? Now this is a very short-term thing. So we had a board meeting last night, and we're going to have another subgroup of the board probably very early next week. It's kind of looking ahead no more than about 9 months, and asking that question. We need to get this economy. This is presented as a health crisis, but the economic crisis is at least as deep as the health crisis. So we've got to get out of this economic crisis. If we don't get out of this economic crisis, actually, as we are already seeing, more people will be dying of non-COVID reasons than COVID reasons. In fact, actually, the death rate for non-COVID reasons has gone up because people are not going to hospital, not getting treatment, etc., etc., etc. So what does that economic recovery plan look like? Very interestingly, and just picking up the learning from other places, and particularly and Cheshire Oaks have been sort of quite strong on this. You might think that the obvious thing to do would be a massive advertising campaign saying, Cheshire and Warrington's open, come back to Cheshire Oaks, come back to the zoo, come back to, etc., etc., etc. Actually, what the likes of Cheshire Oaks and others are picking up is the public are very nervous. Actually, what they want to hear is not Cheshire Oaks is back and running and there are bargains galore. It's, if I come to Cheshire Oaks, can you guarantee that I will be able to remain 2 meters away from somebody at all times? When I hand my £5 note over to, to buy something wherever, and in particular when I get the change, Can I be sure that that it's not contaminated and I'm not going to get COVID from it, and so on and so forth. So actually, much more of a message of reassurance, much more a message of these are the measures that we have put in place to make sure that you are safe. And it may well be that there's an advertising campaign, but that advertising campaign may well turn out to be much more than kind of places in Cheshire are safe places to come, not kind of as I was saying a few minutes ago, sort of right, we're off, all guns blazing. It's going to be like the January sales again. It's going to be brilliant, because actually that's what we're hearing, is that that's going to put people off. Similarly with sort of some of the sort of non-retail, because the retail hospitality sector has been most hit the hardest, but actually some of our manufacturing businesses as well. People worrying about, if I go back to work, will I be able to keep 2 meters? In Bentley, going back to work, I think it's on Monday, and I think they're doing sort of variable split shifts. They've completely redesigned the production line, so you're always 2 meters away from people. They've redesigned their canteen facilities so that you can kind of never have to sit next to someone that when you're having a lunch, and all those sorts of things about kind of reassuring people it is safe to go back to work. So that's where we are doing all of that in conjunction with the local authorities, the police, the health service, etc. Andy, do you want to sort of a couple of words about kind of the service that you're providing, a little bit more about kind of some of the schemes the government has put in place to help businesses?
Yeah, thanks, Philip. As you said, sorry. As you said, Philip, what we've done is we've allocated each member of the team as a kind of expert on one of the main support packages the government have released. So obviously the main ones there are the business rates grants, which have now, we can go into a bit more detail on shortly, the CBL's loan scheme and the job retention scheme, which is obviously the furloughed staff who can be paid up to 80% of their salary. So they were initially the three main services that government announced, and they were quite obviously been very popular with businesses to contacting us. Our kind of call volume and the inquiry volume, we probably had 6 months worth of inquiries in about 4 weeks, which has tested our capacity quite a lot. But the team has done a great job in terms of getting that information out there and making sure the information is very specific and very relevant to those businesses. We've been able to keep our website updated on a daily basis and present that in a way that's quite accessible to people who may not be familiar with the kind of way government lay things out, which can sometimes be a bit complicated. So we've tried to really be the centre of simplifying information, getting as much information as we can to businesses, supporting both the local authorities with getting their business rate grants out. Latest figures from yesterday were, of the £200 million allocated to Cheshire and Warrington, almost 150 million has now been paid out to businesses. But Philip's absolutely right. There's still the difficult part now is getting the remaining funds out to those businesses who we don't have bank details for. So there's a big push to do that. And I would ask everybody on this call to direct any businesses they know through their networks to our websites, local authority websites, so we can get that remaining money paid to businesses who are entitled to it.
Can I ask a question there, please, Andy? Can you do it the other way around? Can you tell us which those businesses are? Because through the chamber networks and the like, we can contact them.
Yes, potentially, but I can't because it's local authorities. But yes, one of the things I can suggest today is if we can share that list out with chamber networks, things that might be helpful.
Andy, I'm just going to jump in there. Yeah, yes, we can, yes, we will, and we'll just forward it on. I'm taking the view that that we're not at too much risk of GDPR because once somebody, sort of, it's quite a different. Somebody rings you up and says, "I want to put £10,000 into your bank account." You're unlikely to turn around and say, "I want to sue you for breach of GDPR for getting in touch with
you would hope not. You would hope not. So yeah. Oh, well.
Okay.
Then yes, I mean, I
can do all three chambers. I can do all three chambers in Cheshire East. So if you just use me as
well, that's great. So we'll pass that on and make sure that happens today. So that's a big push. Obviously, one of the other things is the loan scheme. And you may obviously there's been a bit of back and forth with government to make that a bit easier for businesses to access. There's unfortunately been quite a lot of businesses turned down. Banks have been overwhelmed with the demand, so we've been working hard with banks, with lenders, with government to really try and streamline that process to enable more businesses to access it. As a result of some of that work, we've seen over the last week that governments are now offering 100% guaranteed loans, which is hopefully making that process a little bit easier for more businesses to access it. The furlough support, obviously the first funds of that have now been started to be paid out to businesses, and that process is happening quite quickly. So within a few days of businesses applying for that money, they're now starting to get that. So again, we've done a push on that. The other thing we've been central to is really making sure the information coming back through business is fed into government. So that intelligence is going both ways. It's really important that government get most up-to-date business intelligence so they can structure those support packages to the most relevant way. What businesses are telling us has been hugely valuable. So all of your networks have been massively important in getting that information back into government. Businesses are telling us things that are obviously hugely relevant to them, and that's been really beneficial. So we're going to continue to do that. We've got a new survey live, which is more focused on businesses and what impact the support has had, if it's the right type of support, what other types of support they'd be looking to see. That's live on our website. And again, I'd encourage everyone to kind of circulate that if they can, because I can't overstate how important that real business intelligence is. So I'll leave it there. I'll have to take any questions, but that's a kind of quick overview of some of the things that we're doing. If you follow our social media channels, you'll see some interesting podcasts with some businesses, with some experts. So we're just really trying to do as many different avenues as we can to get as much information out there.
Great, thanks, Andy. Right now, the questions. I don't know how many people we've got online, but obviously everybody can't speak at once. I would suggest if someone has a question, they start by saying, Joe Bloggs here, and then we'll try and you'll come up on the screen, I hope. Right, anybody got a question?
Annette McDonald, I have.
Annette, go ahead.
Philip, I know no one's got a crystal ball, and it's really brilliant to hear about all the stuff that's happening to help now. But just thinking ahead, when you're thinking about 9 months ahead, is there any intelligence or thinking that you're getting from central government in terms of are interest rates likely to go up? Therefore, should we be talking to businesses about if they're thinking about taking out loans when they come back, that actually there's a potential risk attached to that? Do you know what I mean? If there's any intelligence that's coming back out, that'd be really useful in terms of our business resilience planning going forward.
Yeah, there's not a lot of intelligence in truth. I don't think anybody knows where this is going to be.
Are you talking about government?
Or just sort of intuition. I don't know. I'm working on the principle of cash is king. Nimble and agile is the way forward till we know anything else, and minimising all overheads, all everything that we can.
Yeah, you can kind of you can do no more than I personally I'd be very, very surprised if interest rates went up sort of very soon. I think if the first thing that's going to need to happen is the government is going to need to start to withdraw the support that's in place. So there's a really interesting question about what happens with the furloughing support, for example, how long that continues, whether and how it tapers off. Don't forget then all of those CBILS loans and the other loans, they're going to need to be repaid. So there's going to be huge pressure on the economy as people rebuild their balance sheets and so on and so forth. Smaller businesses, particularly the retail trade, have seen the entire spring stock completely wiped out. Restaurants will have had all of their food go off, and they're going to need to rebuild of that. So there's the chances of I would say that I can't see interest rates going up kind of very soon, sort of very fast, because there'll be other measures of support that get taken off first. But is this point where I have to say sort of I'm not qualified to give financial advice?
That was just very aware that there's a big cost of this. That's all.
Yeah, and just one other point on that. Really hard to say. Further measures are going to have to be taken by government to help with that restructuring. Some of the things I've just touched on, are going to be sort of economy wide. So the government's going to have to put some more money into the system to help people rebuild their businesses. But what that looks like, I don't know. There's probably some great brain in the Treasury working it out at the moment.
Philip, the point was made the other day at a briefing that we had from a lawyer on furloughing, HR legal aspects thereof. And the point was made very clearly. What we mustn't have is cliff edges facing us. We don't want to just drop off the end of either the furlough support or the loan support or whatever. So I think that. You've effectively said that, but I hope that message is well understood in central government.
I hope it is.
Can you repeat it for us?
Well, the extension of the furloughing from the end of May to the end of June happened on the last possible day. The CBI had been going on for about a fortnight before that, saying, 45 days from the end of the furloughing period is the point at which we would have to notify if we were going to make people redundant. And I think it was quite literally on the Friday, which was the 46th day, that they announced the extension to the end of June. We can only be about a fortnight away from the next one. So, in front of actually, somebody was on the radio this morning that's saying, can we have a kind of it's 80% now. Could it? I don't know whether we think 60-40. I don't know. I mean, but we will have to see. I'm afraid, but I've kind of got no particular insight into that exactly how they're thinking about that. I'm afraid.
No, but you are in a position to feed in these views.
Oh yeah, no, we will definitely feed. We will definitely feed.
Right. Any other questions? Anybody got another question, please? No. Everybody feels fully briefed.
I'll take that as a positive.
Sorry, Paul Taylor. I had a point then, but I was on mute. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Paul.
Just a quick one, if possible. Thank you very much for the summary from yourself, Philip, and Andy as well. I'm just wondering if there's any support likely to be coming for those who kind of slipped through the net of the initial grant setup. We've had some tenants in particularly serviced offices, things like that, some that are subletting that don't qualify for that magic less than £15,000, because it's only people who are actually registered for small business rates relief, isn't it? So they might have whole property, but they're not actually registered for the rates relief. Is there any support likely to be coming for them?
I'd hesitate to say likely, but what I can say is that we've done a lot of work with the local authorities and with government to give them that data. So what we've been able to do is to look at how many businesses that fall into that, maybe they're in that serviced accommodation, some therefore maybe aren't eligible for anything. That's happened across the whole of the Northwest, and we've been able to feed that into government to give them some real numbers. Say, look, this is how much it would cost you to extend that scheme to maybe businesses within serviced accommodation or just above the 50,000 threshold. So we're certainly having those conversations. We've got another resilience cell this afternoon that's certainly on the agenda, and so we've got another discussion about that. So it's not being ignored, and not just us, but our colleagues in Manchester, Liverpool, certainly across the north, having those conversations with government. As Philip said, we have to wait and see what government do with that.
Yeah, and that's the message going in across the country, and we're both providing numbers, but we're also providing some real examples of anomalies. And my particular favourite is the same, and I hope that they're not on the call, in which case I'm trying not to embarrass them if they are. The same company runs the municipal golf courses in Cheshire West as in Warrington. Because of the structure of their deal with Cheshire West, they qualified for a grant. Couldn't understand why their grant hadn't arrived from Warrington, and it turned out that the way that they sort of rent or hire or whatever, however they own the golf courses and run them, is different in Warrington, and they don't qualify. And it's just a ridiculous anomaly. It's those sorts of some of those stories. Funny enough, actually, very often, big numbers don't resonate with government. You put one of those stories in, all of a sudden somebody sits up and takes notice. So we've been feeding those in as well. But absolutely, I mean, and the serviced offices is particularly, years ago, a couple of years ago, when someone took up serviced office, the landlord said, look, can I make your admin simple for you? I'll just include your rates in your rent. It'll, be fine. It's just one less payment you've got to make. Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. That's great. Fantastic. Bang. You've just suddenly, without realising it, just excluded yourself from a £10,000 grant.
Just to underline what Philip said, if anybody, either your own or people in your network or any of your clients are one of those kind of situations you've slipped through the net and they have a specific story, please send that through, because Philip's absolutely right. That's a really powerful message to send to government, that those specific issues carry quite a lot of weight. So feel free to send any of that through to me, and we can make sure that gets up the chain.
Wonderful, will do, Andy. I'll get in touch with the tenants. Thank you for that. Also, quick one aside. I know you have to dash as well, Philip. It might be helpful for everyone, including yourselves on this call. There's an absolutely cracking piece of work out there for free at the moment by Cushman & Wakefield. I don't know if you've seen it, and it's on about returning to the workplace, and it's all these different. It's the Safety 6 they've got involved and all this other thing. So if you go on the Cushman & Wakefield website, if you just Google Cushman & Wakefield, they've got a number of PDFs available that give a really good breakdown on how to prepare your workplace, what sort of stuff that is you can look to do hopefully when this phased release of everything comes into play. So
I think if I may comment on that, Philip, it's desperately important that we are ready to take advantage of the upturn when it comes. And I don't know whether you were involved in these discussions, but a long time ago, I remember I learned very clearly that the north-south gap opens up as we come out of recessions. Mm-hmm. It's not when things are stable or fine and dandy. It's as we come out. London and the southeast seems to prepare much better for re-emergence from an economic setback than we do in the north. So I urge you and your LEP colleagues, to really give some serious thought to how you can encourage that.
We absolutely will do, and if I can just kind of, we are going to have to stop after this, but I'm very, very happy to sort of take further questions over email and maybe even come back and do another session if that's helpful. But just actually picking up something that Paul said. One of the misconceptions, if you like, about actually the period that we're in at the moment is that you're not allowed to go to work. Actually, what government has said is if you can work at home, do so. But if you need to go out of the house to go to work, then you can carry on doing so. And what we are beginning to see, with the likes of Bentley, but also with Vauxhall, but even some of the fast food restaurants, they have put measures in place that sort of allow the social distance, or ensure that the social distancing can happen. They've had to kind of do things like vary their shift. There's one company elsewhere in the northwest that went from 1 shift to 3 shifts in order to space its production line and ensure that everybody could work. But once you've got those measures in place, there's absolutely nothing stopping you reopening your business now if it's closed. Nobody is saying you can't go to work. There are people, there's a sense out there that we're not allowed to go to work until we're told. That absolutely isn't the case. There are certain businesses that have to close, but they are retail premises, and cinemas and that sort of stuff. A manufacturing premises where there really is no option but to sort of bring the people in and do the work. There's no problem with that opening, as long as you've got the measures in place. And some of the things that Paul's described, look at those. And I think possibly one of the things that we'll do as part of our recovery plan is perhaps think about how we gather up some of the best of that advice. And actually, that a good chunk of that recovery plan might be simply about how we get information out to companies to say, look, get these measures in place, and then you can be sort of up and running again.
Great. Okay. Well, I know you've got to go, Philip. Haven't you?
Unfortunately, yes.
Thank you very much for your attendance this morning. And I guess we're going to close the meeting down if you're not here. We'll having the meeting going.
Just to stress, mate. Look, kind of, if people want to kind of email in questions, we can deal those. Actually, phone up Andy's team on the Growth Hub, and then if you get an absolute deluge of inquiries and it makes sense for us to do another one of these things and people find it useful, then very, very happy to do that.
Okay, we've noted that offer. Thanks very much, Philip.
Right. Okay, thanks, Neville. Thanks everyone.
Everybody else for taking part this morning. I'm sorry if you didn't get your questions answered online straight away. Anyway, thank you, everybody. We'll close the meeting.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.